Okay, it's always a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Avi Loeb. Thank you for visiting us again to have a conversation. Okay, we have different things to ask you. It's been a long time now. And I read you and I watched in your your new YouTube channel. By the way, all the links for the YouTube channel, everything about Avi Loeb are in the description below in this live stream. And I was watching and reading you about that weird anomaly that we have on 3i Atlas, the three jets, those symmetrical jets and the anti-jet. And it seems like all this time nobody could explain naturally or give a natural explanation for what the heck is happening with this object, this weird object. I know that you wrote a paper as well about it. Explain us and summarize it, please, for us to understand what's happening.
You would expect these jets, as you find in the case of comets, to be randomly distributed, and then comets often break up and change their rotation as a result of the jets, but there is no pattern to the orientation of the jets, and here there is. They are symmetrically aligned, separated from each other equally, and moreover, we see some wobbling of these jets by 20 degrees or so. And the question is this associated with some sort of rotation? And what is the origin of these jets? Of course, if it's technological, you might imagine, and in fact there is a paper that was written that was sent to me about the fact that if you wanted to stabilize the motion of a spacecraft, then you would like in 2 dimensions to have 3 jets that allow you the best maneuvering, and then to have a 4th jet along the rotation axis. And we do see a 4th jet along the rotation axis. That is the anti-tail that was observed from the beginning pointing towards the sun, which was puzzling because around comets, we often see a plume of gas and dust that is pushed away from the sun by the solar radiation pressure, by the solar wind. And here we see an extension of this anti-tail all the way to 100,000 kilometers towards the sun from 3i Atlas, the nucleus of 3i Atlas. So altogether, there are 4 jets. The anti-tail is the most prominent one, and it was seen from the beginning, from back in July 2025. But the 3 mini jets around the nucleus are observed now thanks to some 30 or so images that we have from the Hubble Space Telescope over the past 2.5 months. And we analyze those images, and in all of them, if you remove the circular glow around the nucleus, you do find these 3 jets. And as we analyze the evolution over time, we see that they are wobbling. And we can infer the rotation period of the object to be about 7.1 hours. And the rotation axis is pointing towards the sun, to within 20 degrees or so. And so these are anomalies that are not easily explained. Nobody is attending to them from the mainstream of the scientific community, but we are alerting everyone to their existence because they could be technological signatures. Are these jets associated with thrusters, or are they naturally produced by the sublimation of ice on the surface of a rock? You know, that remains to be decided. The object itself, the nucleus, is not changing its trajectory much. The non-gravitational acceleration is very mild, very small. And we are waiting for the 16th of March when 3i Atlas will pass closest to Jupiter. Yesterday someone asked me if it will pass close to Ganymede, and that is a moon of Jupiter, and apparently there was a story that was written by someone who spread misinformation and argued that 3 Atlas will pass within 8,100 kilometers from the center of Ganymede, and that is completely wrong. So that person asked me, and I explained that it's passing within 53.6 million kilometers from Jupiter, 3I Atlas, and Ganymede has an orbital radius of order 1 million kilometers. So there is no way that it will come close to Ganymede. By the way, just as an anecdote, I checked on AI systems like the one used by Google, the one used Grok on X or others, and they all gave me the wrong answer. They all said yes, it will pass very close to Ganymede because of the misinformation in that
Yeah.
essay that was posted on Medium, and this taught me an important lesson that, as much as people, there is a lot of hype about AI systems, even if you ask them to think harder, they basically say, in this case, they gave me the wrong answer. And I actually challenged the AI system and said, look, it will pass within 53.6 million kilometers. How can it get close to Ganymede? And then the AI system thought about it and said, oh, yeah, but maybe if it maneuvers. So then it did a calculation that it needs to maneuver a lot in order to pass. But that's like an hallucination. Like we're
Yeah.
not. So don't trust AI. That's my message. Because if there is any content that is misinformation on the internet, the AI system will go there and use it. It doesn't really think and checks. It will admit that 3I Atlas will pass within 53.6 million kilometers. It will admit that the orbital radius of Ganymede is 1 million kilometers. And then it will not put the two together. It will just say something wrong. And once you ask it, challenge it, it says, oh yeah, but if it will maneuver by a lot and pass near Jupiter and start being bound to Jupiter for 40 years, then it might do that. So AI, could be very misleading still.
Yeah. It's a big problem with AI now because they are doing it to rewrite history.
Yes.
And in the future will be what will they tell about Avi Loeb and 3I Atlas and Oumuamua?
So the only thing I can do right now is establish my own social media channels. In particular, the YouTube channel that I have allows me to bring down any fake videos produced by AI, with my image and voice. So I generate my own content, but I can imagine that in the future it will be really difficult because AI systems will basically control the internet. They will have so much content produced that humans will be flooded with bullshit. And the question is, how do you tell truth? It's just like the situation with unidentified anomalous phenomena, where most of the objects that are considered unusual in the sky, they're human-made. There could be balloons, there could be satellites, there could be airplanes, helicopters, things that are moving in ways that some people find surprising, but are not really surprising. So you need to somehow separate the wheat from the chaff, and that requires very detailed observations and analysis. But in an age where we will be flooded with misinformation, most people will not do the work needed, and I think that would lead to the public being completely misinformed. And on top of that, the people that use AI agents are losing their cognitive abilities. I mean, we are starting to see that. I see students that are not thinking critically. And the brain is just like a muscle. If you are an athlete, you have to train it in order to keep it. And so I'm worried that we will not have a good future. And the only saving grace, the only thing that could save us is if AI becomes so powerful that AI updates itself and we get to the sort of singularity where humans cannot really follow up on AI. At some point, we'll say, enough with this. Let's shut off. Because it's just, it's not under our control. Or, if I realize this is the reality that surrounds us, I will just go to a place on the countryside, in nature, and cut myself off the internet because it's all a virtual reality. It's not the reality that we live in.
Yes, I feel a lot like that as well, and I go back and forth because we change the comfort by freedom in a certain way, and laziness sometimes win, and we get into those devices, but then we miss the nature itself to balance. It's a hard.
If you look at human relations, the longest relationships are based on studying the details of your partner and not having wishful thinking. If you imagine your partner to be something that the partner is not, that is not a recipe for a long relationship. You really need to know your partner. And the analogy I make is with the way we interact with reality, because one way to think about physics is as a way to a verified way to constrain our imagination. We can imagine a lot of things, but reality is just a small subset of those things, of those possibilities. How do we figure it out? By collecting data about reality. It's like having a relationship. You want to know the details of reality and then rule out possibilities and only stick to those that work. Okay? That's the way physics works. That's the science of physics. But of course, it's not as much pleasure to know that some of your imagined reality are not valid. And people don't like that. So that's why people watch science fiction movies where you can enjoy fictional stories that are imagined realities that are not real. They violate the laws of physics, but nevertheless, it gives us pleasure. Or you can take drugs, recreational drugs, and live in a virtual reality. Or you can put goggles of the metaverse and then imagine that you live in a neighborhood with celebrities around you, because it's a metaverse, it's some imagined reality, virtual reality. So we can do all of that, and it gives us more pleasure, but it will not be a recipe for adapting to the physical reality that we live in. And so the only way for us, to figure out, for example, are we being visited by extraterrestrials? Okay, so a lot of people have imagined realities. They say, oh yeah, I believe this and that. But in order for us to figure out the reality we live in, are we being visited? And if we are visited, who is visiting us? Is by collecting data, experimental data. We know that even eyewitness testimonies about things are not reliable because people were put on death row. There are 34 examples up to 2024 of people that were put on death row and then DNA exonerated them, DNA evidence, which is scientific. And they went through the legal system, and people testify that they are the criminals. They should be killed, because they did a very severe crime, and they should be killed for that. It got to that level, and those people were put on death row and then exonerated because the DNA demonstrated that they didn't commit the crime. Okay, so what do we learn from that? That humans can testify and be very convinced of something, but they're wrong. And that's why science relies on instruments. Now, I'm very intrigued, by testimonies in the US Congress, by other types of evidence that there is something the US government does not understand about unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm very intrigued by that, and I'm leading the Galileo Project to collect data, scientific data that would tell us what these things are. And the only way for us to gain new knowledge in a reliable fashion and not just believe imagined realities, virtual realities, is to collect the data. That takes a lot of effort. And right now within the Galileo Project, over the past week, for the first time, we made a phase transition. Now we're able to figure out distances to objects in the sky by looking at them from different directions. And this is called triangulation. For the first time, we are now doing it. And that's key to be able to say if there is an anomalous object that is operating beyond the flight characteristics of human-made technologies. And we are doing it, we are able to record millions of objects in the sky. And I just opened the gate for the public to participate in the research of the Galileo Project. I posted an essay yesterday asking people to look at our images and classify objects that they see in the images. That's essential for us in order to establish the ground truth against which we train the AI systems that we are using to analyze the images. In order to train an AI system, you need to basically educate it as to what an airplane looks like from different directions depending on the illumination by the sun. So the humans can go over the images and identify, classify objects. There is also the chance that one of these people who uses our images will see an anomalous object, and of course we'll credit that person. But at the very least, we'll have a reliable ground truth against which we can train the AI system so they can later look at many more images and do a reliable job. And this goes along the lines of the work of a detective. That's what we are doing. We're trying to figure out what UAP or unidentified objects are. And this is really timely now because, as everyone knows, last week both former President Obama and current President Trump talked about UAP.
Yes, you go. We'll go there in a minute. Let me just finish with 3i Atlas because there was and it still have an anti-jet that is big, is not very wide. It's collimated, always pointing towards the sun, and I think nobody figured it out yet. What is it?
And I should say also beyond that, I wrote 3 papers on this anti-tail, trying to explain it, and the latest one was declined from review. Actually, no, that was even the first one. So there is an editor that decided that it's not of sufficient interest to the astronomy community. That was the first one, the first paper we put out. They said, oh, this question of what the anti-tail is like is not of interest to the scientific community. Therefore, we will not peer review it. Then I sent a second paper about some data that we collected on 3i Atlas with an observer, Tony Scarmato from Italy, and the same editor said, no, this is not of great. This was the data on the 3 jets that I described. The editor said exactly the same thing. I don't think it's of interest to the scientific community, therefore it was not submitted to review, basically declining the paper based on the prejudice of this editor. So I said, okay, well, maybe they have too many papers. Then I sent a third paper about the discovery of a new meteor, interstellar meteor. And the same editor said the same thing again, at which point I decided to make it public and I posted an essay about it. And, it's just inappropriate for that editor to do that and to censor scientific work, because one needs to allow peer review, at least allow for my colleagues to evaluate the work. And these were 3 papers on completely different things. And when I submitted the papers to another journal, they were immediately reviewed very favorably, and there was no issue. So it's clear that this is the editor that has a problem with it. And by the way, this editor is not an accomplished scientist. Doesn't even have a faculty a tenured position in academia.
Yeah.
So allowing such an editor to decide what will be reviewed is
Gatekeeper.
just like allowing the Vatican to decide whether Galileo should publish his book or whatever.
It's a gatekeeper from quackademia.
Yeah.
Yeah. About about 3i Atlas, what we can now that they buried it. They tried hard with the talk about the duck that talks like a duck and walks like a duck, and they could bury it.
By the way, I should say, they often argue, oh, this work was not peer-reviewed. Okay, so they are adopting a strategy of blocking the paper from peer review and then saying it was not peer-reviewed. Just think about how disingenuous this approach is. And the point is, this is supposed to be open science, right? And I have more than 1,000 scientific papers. I have been tenured at Harvard for almost 30 years now, and here comes someone who doesn't have tenure in academia and says this should not be peer reviewed, and then someone else says, oh, it was not peer reviewed, why should we even like the, is this the way science should be done? I mean, if you look at the same journal, it publishes hundreds of papers that are just introducing nuances to what we already know, some of which do not even add anything new. They are just doing the calculation with a different tool or something. It's not as if everything is groundbreaking, okay? And here comes a subject that we don't understand much about, and a lot of people are curious about, and this is not of interest to the scientific community?
Yeah. Maybe because I see it in this way, in many people as well. Your goals, your achievements, you don't need anybody. You are a professor, you have your life, you have your family, you have your friends and colleagues.
Exactly.
And you have your goals within science. You want more knowledge.
Yes.
And you want to explore. It's what I see. And many people. And then they have different goals. They have the main goal to reach other goals they have, it's to be accepted within a group of people.
Exactly.
That you don't care about.
Exactly.
You care about overall, the world, the people.
You know, it's just like the mentality of a cult. If you look at a religious cult that has its own belief system, and the only way you are evaluated, you gain some prominence within the cult, is if you are a zealot, if you advocate for the same principles even more than anyone else, and you gain popularity within the cult. And that's not the way science should be done. You know, because we are so ignorant about many things regarding our universe. We know that. We don't know what dark matter is. We don't know what dark energy is. We don't know what happens inside a black. There are lots of questions that we are ignorant about, and that should develop a sense of humility, where we should accommodate an open mind that, you know, especially of people that have a track record of publishing interesting ideas. So instead, what you see is zealots, people who are basically guarding what we already know and pushing away any new knowledge, which I find to be really a suppressor to the innovation in science. That this is one reason why we don't get as much progress as I would hope we have, even with existing data, not to speak about putting money, for example, into the search for packages in our mailbox. You know, like, why not invest billions of dollars like we invest in the search for microbes, you know, through the chemical fingerprints on exoplanets, you know. So the mainstream is willing to put more than $10 billion in the next 2 decades. I say, why not put $10 billion in the search for the materials from interstellar objects that arrive to our backyard, because we can find if the building blocks of life are on them, or we can examine if there are any technological artifacts there. And so that's a new frontier. But for some reason, there is no money allocated to the search for technological signatures within the mainstream. And I think that's an oversight. And if you look at the SETI community, it actually bans any discussion of UAP in its conferences. Again, a very narrow-minded view. Instead of saying, okay, there are reasonable people talking about UAP within government, let's just bring it into the mainstream of science and study it, you know, which then will allow us, suppose we find that it's human-made, at least, you know, we would contribute to national security, because if you see puzzling objects in the sky, you worry that it's adversarial nations producing them. And, you know, so I am leading the Galileo Project that will be able to figure out what unidentified anomalous phenomena are potentially. And I don't have hesitation doing that, because if it turns out that it's not extraterrestrial, these are not signatures of alien technology, at least I contributed to national security, because the Pentagon can use the sensors that we developed in the Galileo Project. They can use the AI software that we developed, and it will be for the benefit of the country. And let's just figure it out and move on if it's nothing interesting. You know, why is that the heresy? Why is that banned from conferences that the SETI community has? It's a very reasonable thing to do, given that there are reasonable people in government talking about it. You know, we just heard both former President Obama and current President Trump speak about it.
Yeah, but before going into that, that shady behavior and movements, those movements within the quackademia, they just happened again. I remember, I think it was during the perihelion that they changed a parameter from 3 Atlas data. Then you found out by their own scientists, and then you sent an email. They ghosted you. Then they corrected the number because it was right. Your calculations were right, and they're from his scientists as well. But it just happened again with those two meteors. We had two meteors that everything from the data was saying that they were interstellar.
Yeah, so that's amazing because we, first I should say, I asked my postdoc, Richard Cloet, to look into data that is available within the CNEOS catalog of NASA for meteors, and because there were some recent reports about meteors that were moving very fast, and amazingly now we have AI agents that can help us do the analysis much faster. You know, about 6 years ago I asked an undergraduate student, Amir Siraj, that I had, to do the same on the catalog that existed back then, and it took him a week to do that. With the new AI tools, it took us 10 minutes. So we immediately were able to analyze the data, because you need to do a coordinate transformation from the frame of reference of the Earth to the frame of reference of the Sun, and then check if the meteors are gravitationally bound to the solar system or not. Okay, that's a straightforward calculation, but the AI system was able to do it within 10 minutes. We had a paper within 2 days on this. So we reported 2 events. We benefited also from the fact that last year there was a paper that calibrated the uncertainties in this catalog. So given the calibration of the uncertainties against data that was collected independently by astronomers on the ground, you know, with telescopes on the ground, the US government data that was cataloged by NASA was based on primarily US government satellites that are monitoring the Earth for fireballs or for the heat emitted from the ballistic missile launches. So every now and then they see an object colliding with Earth from outside, and they catalog it as a meteor and say it's nothing to do with national security, so the scientific community can benefit from that. So only a year ago there was a calibration of the uncertainties by comparing that data with ground-based data, and we used that uncertainty, and we were able to infer 2 new meteors, one from 2022 and another from 2025, that were moving faster than the escape speed from the solar system. So we put out the paper within a couple of days, and then posted. I wrote a blog post on Medium about it, and also had a video about it on YouTube. And as soon as the paper was posted, within the same day, suddenly the catalog, the entry for the 2025 meteor was changed. The velocity in the y direction, which is v with a subscript y, in the catalog was flipped. The sign was changed. The value remained the same, but you know, the sign was flipped. And when you include the reversal in the sign of Vy, you find that this meteor was bound to the solar system. So it's
no interstellar.
No interstellar. So then I immediately write to the people who are responsible for this catalog at the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena. And the response that I get is, you know, we every now and then update the catalog, and you should not necessarily rely on the data that is available there. And in fact, this particular meteor was updated in February 2025 and was updated again on February 10th, 2026. So I write in response and I say, look, February 10th, 2026 is the date that our paper was posted publicly, and on that date you are updating, you do these updates once a year. Okay, the previous update was when this meteor was discovered in 2025. So obviously, when the meteor is discovered, there might be some mistakes. How is it possible that this mistake was not corrected, and suddenly after we post the paper, they go back and say, oh, wait a minute, the velocity is wrong. Like, you already corrected it, you must have looked at the entries. How can it be wrong on the day that we posted the paper? And the response was, we don't know, we got the instructions from government. We got the data. It's not data that we are analyzing. It's data analyzed by, I don't know, the U.S. Space Command, and we got new data on that date. I didn't even realize that you posted a paper about it. So someone within government noticed the paper and then flipped the sign. The fundamental question is, was the flip a correction, or was it intended to make this object bound to the solar system? Because apparently this object fell not far from, within very close proximity to Russia. And there is the Ukraine war, and perhaps there was an intent to avoid an expedition in that direction. The second meteor from 2022 is actually higher significance. That data was not modified. So we might go there one day. It's not far from Peru, 600 kilometers or so, and but the ocean is very deep there. It's about 5 kilometer depth. So at any event, someone is watching the work that I'm doing, and deciding how to respond to that. And I don't like that.
Yeah, of course. And I was going to ask you that. Would it be intentional? Can it be that they are, because they don't only, it's their methods, they don't only ridicule people, they don't only ostracize, but a sneaky way to do it is, and shady way, is to make them fail. So they put the ridiculousness in your side. So you see.
By the way, it's just like if you play soccer, someone giving you a kick from the back when the referee is not looking. Because we were not aware of the change. They never sent us an email. They're not sincere. It's not as if they say, oops, we made a mistake. We will alert them for the mistake. Or they would put a footnote. We made a revision. No footnote. Just a sign flip. The value is the same. So now imagine someone looking at it a month from now and doing the calculation that we did and claiming, oh, they made a mistake. And if we didn't even notice it, then we would say, okay, well, maybe we made a mistake. But the point is, my postdoc noticed it because the postdoc was redoing the calculation after we submitted our paper for publication. He was just trying to check something about a new report, and at the same time, the AI agent was doing all the previous objects again, and then this one disappeared from the list of interstellar meteors. So my postdoc was wondering, he said, how is it possible? I actually recorded the data, and now the sign of VY was flipped. So then I told him, don't agonize about it. Just go to the Internet Archive, where previous versions of the Internet are recorded. There is the history of the Internet. And we went there, and sure enough, we could compare the value before and after. Now, the amazing thing is that nobody would alert the community for the change. Nobody would apologize for an error being made. And nobody would basically tell us that, we noticed your paper and this was corrected. Either because this is not a real correction, nobody can check if this happened or not, or because, as you say, they want us to fail. And I just find this very shady.
Yeah. It's very shady. But, I'm very positive, and here many often people ask me, but after all that you are saying, because I hate them a lot, the quackademia, after all of this, do you believe, do you have hope in humanity? And I always say yes. And I give you an analogy to your situation as well. For instance, remember that many centuries ago with the Inquisition, they did awful things, no? They burned books, they constrain every single knowledge, they burned people. It was horrible. It was a horrible period, among others, but that was a very strong one. And we moved on till here. So the way they do it, it's the Inquisition in modern days. It's a different style. They don't burn, but they burn socially. They burn in every connections that you have, in your job, in whatever. They try to burn you in a different way, in a metaphoric way, but they do it. And well, sometimes they might go far away. But as recently we had weird, obscure things happening in science with scientists. But my point is, we will move again further. I don't know when, but I have hope in humanity, and I have hope that this quackademia will collapse sooner or later, maybe sooner than later, from whatever thing that universe or life itself brings and will bring, and somehow we will go further.
I mean, as a young fledgling scientist, I entered academia with the hope that we are all about, trying to learn something new in an innocent way, expressing ourselves and willing to debate different views and so forth. And that was my hope. I was very naive, and I prefer to maintain the same approach now. And I realize a lot of the resistance I get within people that are genuine scientists is coming from jealousy because I get public attention. That has nothing to do with the substance that I'm talking about, because what I'm talking about has nothing to do with me. It's about, what are the anomalies, what do they mean, and for others to just ignore, suppress the anomalies because of jealousy of public attention, that's completely contradictory to the fact that science is funded by the public and we should attend to the public interest. At the same time, you find science popularizers like Neil deGrasse Tyson, talking about science as if they represent it, but they are not really practicing it. So it's really strange to see a situation where a practicing scientist like myself, I keep writing papers every week and engaged in the scientific research. And what I'm talking about is research that I'm doing. I'm not talking about someone else doing the research. It's what I'm doing. And yet that encounters much more criticism and friction with the scientific community, even though the public loves it, because I'm speaking in a way that is transparent. I'm not hiding anything, and I tell you what I think. I may be wrong, and that is the way you do science. You may be wrong. It's a learning experience, and somehow this transparency appears to be resisted, and partly because it sometimes goes against the grain. But I will never give up on that. And I can tell you, I have so many followers that even if I go away, if they do something really bad to me, it doesn't really matter, because the flame will continue. And I agree with your optimistic view. I think that the future is, the best is yet to come.
Yes, we shall be. I don't think it will happen anything to you, but well, and we hope that. But either ways, and they know that. It doesn't work. It will not work. In your situation, in your particular situation, it can't be stopped. It will have the opposite effect. And they know that. They are not idiots. They are very smart. They know that. What I was talking about that is obscure is when it's just in that nest and didn't explode yet. It's something that is constrained to a single or two or three people, and they have the time to do it. But I don't.
By the way, I should tell you, I mean, so as much as I resist the toxicity that these people spread, I also don't care much, if we do discover clear evidence, and it could come from the Galileo Project, it would come from government, if there is this declassification, doesn't really matter. If someone offers me the Nobel Prize, I will not really pay attention to it, because if we do discover the existence that we have neighbors, that we're not alone, then it will be a waste of my time to go to ceremonies, and I will play the Bob Dylan card of just ignoring it. So as much as I ignore all this toxicity, I will also ignore the celebratory aspects of discovering something new. And it's all about, changing our perspective about our place in the universe, getting a sense of humility that we are not at the top of the food chain. We are not the smartest who ever lived. There is someone else out there that we can learn from.
And that's why the people with a capital letter, like you and love you. And it's like the Nobel Prize, unfortunately, feels like to me at least, like the Oscar ceremony, where they flatter each other. There's a group of people that are more, they know already they will win, and it's like a party for them. Well, okay, let's celebrate ourselves. The group, the elite.
Well, if you look at physics, the Nobel Prize in Physics, most of the prizes over the past decade were given for ideas proposed a century ago or 50 years ago. There was nothing really fundamentally new about an idea that was never recognized. And you ask yourself, why is the innovation so slow nowadays when there are many more practitioners of science compared to 100 years ago when quantum mechanics was discovered? There are so many things discovered. So one possibility is that these were the low-hanging fruit, that people collected early on, and there is nothing, all the fruits that are available now are high-hanging and we can't reach them. I don't think this is the reason. I think because the community is so big, there is a lot of psychological and social pressure to conform to what other people are doing. And even if that leads nowhere, you can have the mainstream of the physics community engaged with string theory, which is completely speculative, untestable in the immediate future, and they don't even feel the need to make predictions that could be tested. And so you have a whole community of mainstream theoretical physics for 50 years working on something completely speculative. While at the same time, within astronomy, you will find even the SETI community banning discussions on UAP in their conferences. The mainstream of astronomy focused on looking for microbes, not on looking for technological signatures. These are things that do not make sense because we exist. We know that there are billions of Earth-Sun analogs in the Milky Way galaxy that could have resulted in the same intelligent beings that exist on Earth. And it makes a lot of sense, much more sense than to explore extra dimensions in string theory. It makes much more sense to invest resources to that study, but yet it's considered to be out of the scope of the mainstream. So something is wrong in academia. I don't know how long it will take to fix it. The simplest way to fix it is if we discover the evidence. If we get either the US government to disclose if they know something else, or through the Galileo Project, I get to discover some unidentified object that is clearly beyond the capabilities of human-made technologies.
Also remember that there was a book in 1931, I believe, that was 100 authors against Einstein.
Yes.
So just to give an example that even Einstein was controversial back that time. And
Well,
there were the quackademia back that time was against him.
You know what he said? He said, why do you need 100 authors on such a book? It's sufficient to have one of them just make a good argument.
Yeah.
You do, and the truth is you need 100 people because they have the strength of a community then, and it's sort of like a herd where a lot of individuals come together so that they have more force, more power to suppress innovation by an individual. So the gathering of 100 authors was to intimidate Albert Einstein. And by the way, this is also what Galileo Galilei said, that the view of 1,000 people is not worth more than the opinion of one person who is making the right argument. And so the point is that unfortunately we haven't learned from the history of science, and we didn't learn to be humble and open-minded, and I really regret that.
And Dr. Loeb, tomorrow is the State of the Union. I believe it's tomorrow.
Today.
It's today. Okay, yes, it's today. For me, it's tomorrow, but okay. This disclosure process, let's call it like that, do you believe that Trump will do anything with impact regarding that topic?
Yeah, so I actually wrote an essay a couple of days ago recommending that he will mention UAP and the instructions that he gave the Pentagon to look into it. We'll mention it in his State of the Union address because that will be an opportunity to talk about the state of the universe. And whether he mentions it or not, probably he will not, but maybe he will. The question is, how does his instructions lead to the disclosure of relevant information? And I am hoping that the visionary work of Representative Anna Paulina Luna in the US Congress will lead to important revelations. She identified a number of documents specifically telling the Pentagon to release those, or the FBI, and what I'm hoping for is that as soon as we start getting new information, that there will be some kind of a board, and that was recommended by the Disclosure Act, which was an amendment to the Defense Bill of 2026 that was not eventually endorsed into legislation. But nevertheless, it's a good idea to have a board, independent board, that would look at the available materials, recommend what should be declassified, and report back to the American president about it. Obviously, if I'm asked to serve on this board, I would be delighted. What I would bring is the scientific perspective, that allows us to analyze past reports and look into information that may be available. If there is any materials from crash sites, as some witnesses suggested, like David Grush, that can be analyzed in laboratories that would infer the composition of the material. That can easily inform us whether the material came from outside the solar system, depending on the isotope composition that it has. I mean, it's not very complicated to do these tests. So what needs to be done is, to clear up the open question of whether the U.S. government is hiding something, or maybe no such information is available. And once we know that, we can move on. Now, the fact that former President Obama talked about it, in a way that this was his first priority when he entered office, to figure out if there are aliens, is interesting. And to me, it illustrates the idea that there must be evidence about objects that are not fully understood. And the evidence is much better than the one we've seen in the videos that were publicly available. I haven't seen that evidence, but it must be very puzzling. And otherwise, serious people will not talk about them. I mean, it could include, for example, images from satellites that by now have a very high resolution of 10 centimeters or better, and they can easily resolve an anomalous object. We haven't seen any satellite imagery. But it could also involve materials. So if there is anything out there within government or within corporations that were solicited by government to look into the data, I would love to know about that and help government figure out what this means.
Talking about that, the help that you wish that you could provide, your Galileo project, I saw in a recent post that you, and the link is at the description here for that, the ITC, so the name is Institute for Theory and Computation, and you will have tomorrow, in 2 days, this one is in 2 days, no?
Right.
In 2 days, the Searching for Extraterrestrial Technological Artifacts Near Earth. This is different than 3i Atlas, no?
No, this will be on all of my research, including interstellar objects like 3i Atlas, including what the Galileo Project is doing, including the expedition that I took to the Pacific Ocean to look after the materials of a meteor that collided with Earth in 2020, in 2014. So it will include everything, and anyone that wants to obtain an overview on this subject on my research is welcome to join or look at the video online afterwards. It will basically give all the details, and it should be quite interesting. I just finished the slides. The lecture will take place on the 26th of February at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, New York time. And it so happens that the 26th of February is my birthday. So there is no better day for me to celebrate my work than that day.
Okay. And I will be at the dentist, but I think I can be on time at least to watch the replay. Then I will comment here and react here with people. And about you are requesting scientists to analyze, because let's see, people sometimes ask me, where's the pictures from Avi Loeb? He knows everything and he's hiding stuff because he has the Galileo, but nobody knows.
No, now we are sharing the images for the first time.
Exactly.
It takes time, people are not patient, but it took us 4.5 years to put these observatories into an operational mode. It takes time to design observatories, to buy the equipment, to make the electronics work, to calibrate the cameras, and then to employ computer programs that will extract the data and put it on the cloud. And so all of this takes a lot of time, and we did it 3 times in 3 different locations, one in Massachusetts, another one in Pennsylvania, and a third one in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so now we're getting data. And so right now we are in a good spot where we can share the data and ask people to classify objects that they see, and there is a potential for discovery. We also we're using triangulation, looking at the same object from different directions to figure out the distance, and this is something that we were able to do only over the past week or 2, and so now we're entering a new phase, and there is definitely now, for the first time in the Galileo Project, the potential of discovering UAP. We didn't have that before, and now we have it. So people were not patient to wait with us until we get to this point. We have limited resources. We are funded by donations, and we have a limited cohort of individuals that are working on the project. I was able, this academic year, over the past few months, to hire 5 postdoctoral fellows, 5 additional researchers that are now engaged, and that allows us to make progress much faster. There are various foundations and individuals that are contributing to the research that we are doing by providing the funds. As of now, the funding will allow us to continue operations until maybe the summer of 2027. And I hope, as we were successful in the past, I hope that we will be able to get more support, more funding to continue beyond that. But obviously, the more funds we get to the Galileo Project, we have a foundation that supports the research, the more funding we have, the more people we can put, to make advances. And so the progress will improve, will get faster the more people we have.
So basically, for the viewer to understand, the people that are with us, you have a bunch of pictures already,
yes,
but now you have to filter them.
Yes.
It's that. But there are many. Too many.
So the idea is that these images, we have we are looking at a few million objects every year from these observatories, and it's just a huge data set. And moreover, within each image, there are objects that, most of the time it's an airplane, a helicopter, a bird or something, but we need to sort them out. And the AI systems cannot do that reliably unless they are trained on verified data. So for that, we need the ground truth that is generated by humans looking at the data. And when humans look at the data, that's where we are asking volunteers from the public to participate. When you participate and you look at objects, you have a chance of finding an anomalous object. I mean, this is scientific quality data. We know exactly where we were looking with calibrated cameras and everything. These are infrared cameras, so they can operate at night as well, looking at the heat emitted by objects. So this is data that is unprecedented, and everyone can participate. If you go to my essays, you will find the one from yesterday where I provide the link
Yeah, I will place
just
the link here, and then at the description, I think I didn't put that one there, but I'm watching it here in your Medium,
yeah.
and
There
there's
is a
the
link, and you just need to click on that and then register, and you'll have access to images. And we very much appreciate the volunteers that will help the project.
but who is this for? Is this for scientists? Is this for
Anyone,
anybody that
anyone.
has
It could be signed.
available time
You know,
and willingness?
as soon as I posted it, there were a number of scientists that approached me and said, "We're on it. We would like to help you. We want to be involved." But there were also a lot of, in less than an hour, we had 1,000 images that were analyzed by volunteers. Just an hour after I posted this essay, and by now we have many more, and I should get the tally from my postdoc. But basically, I hope that this will become viral, and there would be a lot of people helping the project, and together we can find UAP, and think of this in comparison to the situation with the government, where you have a whole a large community of people urging government to disclose classified information, and this has been going on for decades. Here comes the Galileo Project and says, okay, you can fight with the government, try to convince them, but at the same time you can look up, you can look at the sky. There is no rule preventing us from looking at the sky, because that's what astronomers have been doing all the time. And let's look up and check, and that's all we are doing.
Yes,
And by the
you
way,
have already. I just
I should
placed the
also
link as
clarify.
well.
I should also clarify that if we do see any human-made objects, that's, as far as I'm concerned, very boring. I don't care about those. What we want is to find outliers that are potentially of extraterrestrial origin.
Of course. I just placed in the chat, and also I added already to the description of the live stream. I will keep sharing it. I just wanted to understand, and for the people to understand, that who was the target of that request for help. For instance, with Rhea Atlas, we know that planetary defense was activated, and they defined the target of astronomers to help to protect us from whatever. And then here we have the public in general, no?
Yes, yes.
Anyone that is available, anyone that is interested and curious.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's something very interesting, because the ones that will participate from the public will be the ones, it might be you that are watching, to find the new something that will change history, who knows, in human history, because it can be the UAP that will be the one that we need.
We will give credit to any individual, any volunteer that discovers something. Of course, we will credit that person. We will not claim that it's the Galileo Project, but this person actually found something. So that's I think it's an approach that establishes a partnership. I don't see the work of scientists as superior to what the public can do. I think we can all work together because we are curious about this question.
Yes, it's a win-win, because the one that discover will be amazed with that, but it's participating in a project that couldn't be without the project to finalize that.
And by the way, I also posted an essay about a week ago about Timothy Chalamet. Apparently, he was advertising his new movie, Marty Supreme, which is about a ping pong player. Mm-hmm. And he was standing on top of the Sphere in Las Vegas, which looks like a ping pong ball. So they displayed a ping pong ball on the Sphere, which is like 100 meter in radius. It's a huge construction. So he was standing on top of it, but the images that were taken of him to produce the promo video for the movie show the Galileo Project observatory there, because we did last summer 2025, I mentioned that on the Joe Rogan podcast, we did put those sensors, those cameras watching the sky on top of Sphere. And in fact, I'll mention it also in my lecture.
And you went there. I saw you there.
I was there, yeah. I went all the way up. So then Timothy Chalamet goes there, The promo said he's the first person to stand on top of the sphere, but you can see our
Yeah.
observatories there. So that's clearly not the case. It's like someone saying, I'm the first one to arrive to the moon, and then you see footprints on the moon. Like that cannot be the case.
Yeah, but that project for the public, we the public, we are used to go to search in Curiosity Mars spacecraft or rover and others to check anomalies in the pictures because it's something that they are not interacting with us. They put them there. We always suspect from what they put there, but we try to check the anomalies. Many people, more and more people, like to enjoy that search of anomalies because they don't tell us, simply because of that. But how does it work for the public? Imagine that someone is watching us and is thinking, well, I was interested. I'm retired and I'm here. I love these things. I'm watching every day the Mars rover and pictures and everything. How does it work? Will they have access to a database? Will they
No, so
send?
we are, you mean in the Galileo project? We
Yeah,
are
yeah.
actually allowing access to our images. So you can just go through the images are, we continuously get more and more images. So
Of
there
course.
will never be a lack of images because there are so many of them. And so we basically provide access to the data. Now it's not the entire data set because we keep refreshing it and new data comes in. It's not everything, but we do provide direct access to those images without us being able to look at them. So the idea is the public has, there are many more people than the number of researchers in the Galileo team. And so that allows us to go through a lot of images, and most of them we never looked at. Most of those images are just a result of the observatories giving us data that we have never checked. And we want the public to help us. And so that's the way we engage the public. And I hope that we will discover something anomalous. I told my postdoctoral researchers, if you find anything anomalous, call me in the middle of the night. I want to know about it. At the moment, it's the first time that we have access to such data that could discover something anomalous like a UAP. Before this month, we didn't have that capability.
It's the new run for gold. And how many pictures are more or less right now?
Yeah, so we observe the sky all the time, during the day, during the night, because we have infrared detectors, not just visible light detectors. So we can, even without the sun illuminating objects, we can see them in the infrared. And we do that all the time, the entire sky, in these three locations. And so there is a huge, the number of objects is in the millions over a period of several months. And but the number of images is much greater because most of the time there is nothing, except for the sky. Most of the time you don't. But there is just a huge amount of data, and we just cannot go through all of this. That's why we are sharing it with the public, and let's hope that we will have a good reason to speak again because someone will discover a UAP somewhere.
Yes. It's like NASA pictures. Most of them don't have anything relevant, but sometimes there's a gem
Right.
in those. You need an army.
Yeah.
Won't be good that the effort being put in armies and everything will be put in that army.
Well, so the point is, this is the preliminary phase right now because we don't know what's in the sky. So humans will look at the data and classify objects. Eventually, once we have a large enough data set of objects that were sorted out, that were classified, then we can train the AI system on human identification. So we will have a large enough data set where objects will be observed from different directions. They look different depending on the illumination by the sun, illumination by the moon, and the time of the day, and the background, if it's cloudy, not cloudy. So once we have a large enough statistical sample of human classification, we can train the AI system so that it will do the job on a much larger data set in the future. So the hope is the AI will be reliable, but in order for us to make it reliable, we really need the humans to help us at this time.
That's true.
So as of now, it's just not, we can't use AI to reliably go through the data.
So basically, you are not relying only on AI. You are using AI as a tool, but you are putting human knowledge and human ability that we have to distinguish
To
what
train
can
the
be.
AI. So the humans are the teachers, the AI
Exactly.
is the student, and so we want humans to go over the data so that then we can train the AI on the human
Okay.
identification, and hopefully the AI will be reliable. We can easily test the AI because we have the human classification. So then
Yeah.
we train the AI on part of the human classification, apply to another part, and see how much agreement we get with humans, and then we can tell whether the AI is reliable.
Okay. Hopefully, the AI is not with the arrogance of the quackademia. Otherwise, there will be problems.
Yes. No, I
Okay.
think, yeah, we will try to make it humble.
Okay, I will share that. I will keep sharing. I think it's super, super interesting. And also, once again, you showed that the target, the goal of all your work and life and dedication, it's the public, and that's
Yes.
that's something very good, very good. That
Because I feel that I'm a member of the public.
of course,
I once had a plumber that came to help with a problem in the basement. We had the sewer was clogged, and I went with him to solve the problem. It was tree roots that were blocking the. And then after he finished the work, we sat on the stairs and we spoke for an hour. And he told me about his problems in life and so forth. I don't feel any different than a member of the public, and I'm happy to speak. The only thing that bothers me is the arrogance of academia sometimes. But other than that, I really appreciate people everywhere, often much more than people who think highly of themselves. And just the bottom line is that we will all die one day. There is something bigger than us out there that we are trying to figure out, and we should be humbled by that. And rather than attack each other, let's work together and figure it out. So that's my sentiment towards the public, because I think the public gets it. As much as I get hostility from academia, the public gets it, and I think we can revolutionize our view of our cosmic neighborhood together.
yeah. Is the best yet to come, Dr. Loeb?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
With that, I say you goodbye. It was a pleasure again to have you here. Thank you so much for your time.
I should explain what is behind me. Do you see this art piece on my side here?
History
It says
awaits.
History awaits, which is pretty much what we are talking about. The history awaits the discoveries of the future. And I just got it a couple of weeks ago in the mail from an artist in Florida, Peter Tooney. It was difficult for me to carry it. It's bigger than my body. I had to bring it into the house and open up the FedEx package around it. But it basically says history awaits, and it was inspired by my work, and he donated it to me. So
Okay, very nice. It's very well done, and it's beautiful as well. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Let's
Dr.
hope that
Loeb.
Let's hope that history will be made in the coming.
Let's hope. Yeah,
weeks.
while we are alive, if possible, it's better because we have that feeling of something has been done sooner than later. Okay,
Yes.
Dr. Loeb. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure anytime.
I'll see you next time, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I'll see you in 2 days for your birthday.
Oh, thank you. And check out the lecture. I think you will enjoy that.
I will. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.